There is a kind of weakness that almost nobody notices anymore. It does not look dramatic, it looks normal. It looks like reaching for your phone before you reach for your own mind, reacting too quickly, over-explaining yourself, needing reassurance, needing to be understood. And because it is common, it no longer looks like weakness, but it is. Because real power has never been loud. The strongest person in the room is rarely the one demanding attention, it is the one who does not need to. The person who has mastered himself carries a quiet presence, you feel it before he speaks. That kind of power is not charisma, it is not image, it is habit. And if you've been feeling scattered, reactive, or frustrated by the gap between who you are and who you could be, this is not just about discipline. It is about reclaiming authority over your own life. Most people think they have a motivation problem. They don't. The real problem is fragmentation. One part wants discipline, another wants comfort, one part wants peace, another keeps feeding chaos. And the more divided you become, the weaker you feel. This is what the Stoics understood. People are not destroyed first by hardship. They are destroyed by losing control of themselves. In a world designed to distract you, self-mastery becomes a form of power. And today, we're going to explore the habits that make a person silently powerful. Habit 1. Win the first hour of the day. Silent power begins in the morning, long before anyone sees you. The first hour is not important because of productivity culture. It is important because it reveals who is in command. If your day begins with drift, the rest of your mind often follows. If it begins with deliberate order, something steadier takes hold. I used to think the damage was small. A few minutes here, a little scrolling there, a vague start. But what I learned is that a weak beginning changes the emotional posture of the entire day. When you start by consuming, reacting, checking, comparing, and absorbing, you do not step into the day as a man. You enter it as an open gate. That is why one habit that genuinely helped me was learning to win the first hour. No scrolling, no drifting, just silence, movement, and a clear intention before the world could start pulling at my attention. The Stoic principle underneath this is simple. Rule yourself before the world tries to rule you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself at dawn that he was going to meet interference, selfishness, ignorance, and distraction. He did not say this to darken the morning. He said it to prepare the mind before contact with the world. A weak man checks the weather of the world before checking the state of his own mind. A disciplined man does the reverse. That might mean 5 minutes of stillness, a walk, a written intention, cold air, prayer. A hard task done before comfort has a chance to bargain. The exact routine matters less than the principle. You must begin the day in possession of yourself, because if you do not, everything else becomes harder. And when a person cannot command the beginning of the day, he usually starts compensating later with urgency, self-criticism, and false busyness. That leads to the next habit. Habit 2. Do not react immediately. Many people confuse quickness with strength. It is often the opposite. The man who must answer instantly, defend instantly, text instantly, rage instantly, explain instantly, post instantly, is not powerful. He is permeable. He has no space between stimulus and response, which means the world can enter him too easily. Epictetus taught that when something happens, what disturbs us is not the thing itself, but our judgment about it. That sounds abstract until you watch it happen in real time. A message gets ignored. A meeting goes badly. Someone speaks with disrespect. A plan falls apart. And within seconds, the mind manufactures a story. I am being dismissed. This always happens to me. They do not value me. I need to respond. I need to show them. I need to fix this now. That speed feels powerful because it feels intense. But intensity is not mastery. Habit 2 is the habit of pause. Not passivity, not cowardice. Pause, a silent count before replying, a walk before sending the message, a breath before the meeting, a night before the decision. This is one of the first places people lose themselves, not in catastrophe, but in reflex. They become so used to immediate emotional obedience that they stop noticing they are being governed by whatever touched them last. Look at modern life, and you will see how normal this has become. Someone reads one comment, and their mood belongs to a stranger for 3 hours. Someone sees another person's success online and spends the rest of the day in quiet agitation. Someone hears one criticism and mentally rehearses a courtroom defense no one asked for. This is not strength, it is exposure. The Stoic does not aim to feel nothing, he aims to remain sovereign while feeling. The pause is where sovereignty returns, and once you stop reacting immediately, you begin to notice another leak of power that most people never repair. Habit 3. Speak less, but let your words carry weight. There is a reason deeply grounded people often speak with economy, not because they are trying to seem mysterious, because they are not internally frantic. A lot of speech is not communication, it is discharge. People talk to relieve their anxiety, to prove their intelligence, to secure approval, to fill silence, to soften their own uncertainty. They explain what did not need explaining. They repeat themselves. They reveal too much, too early. They confuse openness with lack of boundaries. Seneca warned against scattering oneself. That applies to speech as much as anything else. Every unnecessary word can be a small surrender of force. Habit 3 is learning restraint in speech. To answer the question asked. To leave silence untouched when silence is stronger. To avoid narrating every plan before it has taken root. To stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. To stop treating every room like a stage for self-display. The modern world rewards overexposure. It teaches people to externalize everything immediately. Every thought posted, every feeling declared, every intention announced before it has earned reality. And then people wonder why they feel drained, unstable, and strangely fragile, because power grows in containment. The man who speaks carefully is not weak, he is gathered. You see this especially in conflict. Weakness rushes to prove itself. Silent power does not need theatrics. It can say one clear sentence and let reality do the rest. And when a person learns to speak less, he begins to hear more. He hears the motives beneath words. He hears the insecurity in other people's aggression. He hears the panic in his own urge to over-explain. Which brings us to another habit most people desperately need. Habit 4. Stop explaining yourself to everyone. There is a form of hidden desperation in constant self-justification. It sounds reasonable at first. You want people to understand your intentions. You want to clear things up. You want to defend your decisions. But if you are not careful, explanation becomes dependence. You begin needing permission from the crowd before you trust your own path. And that is one of the fastest ways to lose silent power. Epictetus said that if you want to improve, be willing to appear foolish or uninformed in external matters. In other words, stop building your life around looking right to everyone. That line cuts deep because so much modern weakness is built on image management. People announce their discipline before they have it. They defend choices they secretly doubt. They keep talking because they are terrified of being misread. But a man who knows what he is doing can survive being misunderstood. Habit 4 is the habit of standing by your decisions without turning every choice into a public trial. Not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Not every criticism deserves rebuttal. Not every misunderstanding is an emergency. There was a period in my life when I realized no one was coming to impose structure on my life for me. That was a hard realization, but also a freeing one. The moment I accepted that my life would only become orderly when I became orderly, everything started to change. Part of that change was this: I stopped waiting for my choices to feel socially endorsed before I honored them privately. That is a major turning point in self-mastery, because once you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you can finally hear the harder question: if no one praised this choice, would I still know it was right? That question begins separating performance from principle, and it leads into the next descent, where many people slowly betray themselves. Habit 5. Do difficult things on schedule, not on mood. This is where comfort becomes corruption. Not because rest is wrong, real rest is necessary, but avoidance often wears the mask of rest, and that is where people quietly lose years. I used to justify this too. I used to call it rest, when, in truth, it was avoidance. I told myself I was waiting for the right energy, the right mood, the right moment. But the truth was simpler and less flattering. I was postponing responsibility. That is one of the most common forms of self-deception in modern life. People do not usually say, "I am refusing discipline." They say, "I just need to reset. I'll start when things calm down. I work better when I feel inspired." Meanwhile, their self-respect erodes because the body learns what the excuses mean. My word to myself is negotiable. Seneca understood that luxury weakens the will not because pleasure is evil, but because ease becomes expectation. Once a person becomes too accustomed to doing only what feels tolerable, he becomes brittle. Small resistance starts to feel like injustice. Habit 5 is to do hard things on schedule, to train the nervous system to stop asking whether you feel like it. That may mean writing when the mind is dull, training when comfort argues against it, making the difficult call, facing the unfinished work, keeping the promise. The key is not harshness for its own sake. The key is teaching yourself that your higher judgment outranks your passing mood. A weak pattern says, "I'll do it when I feel ready." A disciplined pattern says, "I become ready by doing it." This is one of the habits that makes a person feel different to others. Not flashy, not aggressive, just reliable, solid, unmoved by the small emotional weather that derails everyone else. And once a person starts doing difficult things on schedule, another danger becomes visible. He begins to see how much of his life was being stolen by attention itself. Habit 6. Guard your attention like territory. Attention is one of the purest forms of life. What you repeatedly give it to, you become shaped by. This is why distraction is not a minor inconvenience. It is a philosophical issue, a spiritual issue, a character issue. Marcus Aurelius was constantly pulling his mind back from dispersion, not because he lived in a world of smartphones and endless feeds, but because human beings have always been vulnerable to mental scattering. We just industrialized it. Now the average person lives in perpetual interruption. He cannot sit in silence without reaching for stimulation. He cannot work deeply without toggling between windows. He cannot think one thought through without checking what someone else is doing. Then he wonders why he feels powerless. Because habit 6 is this: protect your mind from unnecessary invasion. Be harder to reach, less available to triviality, more selective about what enters your nervous system. That includes content, conversations, environments, even people whose chaos keeps trying to recruit your mind into itself. A silently powerful person is not merely disciplined with actions, he is disciplined with exposure. He knows that if he begins every day consuming outrage, envy, gossip, and noise, he will eventually speak with their voice and think with their fragmentation. So he becomes a gatekeeper. He does not need to know everything. He does not need to respond to everything. He does not need to witness every drama just because it is available. This can feel lonely at first because overstimulation has become a form of companionship for many people. Silence feels empty when you are addicted to input, but if you stay with it long enough, silence starts feeling like strength. And that strength becomes most visible when pain enters the picture. Habit 7. Accept discomfort without drama. One of the clearest signs of inner weakness is not pain itself. It is theatrical pain. The constant inner commentary. Why is this happening? Why is this so hard? Why can't things be easier? Why do I always have to deal with this? The event hurts, and then the mind multiplies the hurt with resistance. The Stoics were relentless about this, not because they denied suffering, but because they saw how much unnecessary suffering comes from protest against reality. Habit 7 is the habit of bearing discomfort cleanly, not boasting about it, not building an identity around it, not collapsing into complaint every time life refuses convenience. This matters in obvious hardships, but it matters just as much in ordinary life. The awkwardness of being misunderstood, the discomfort of telling the truth, the boredom of disciplined repetition, the sting of rejection, the fatigue of progress that no one sees yet, the loneliness of becoming different from the people around you. A weak person treats discomfort as evidence that something is wrong. A Stoic treats discomfort as part of the price of becoming trustworthy to himself. This is especially important for the person who says he wants change, but keeps arranging life so he never has to feel friction. That person stays soft, not because he lacks intelligence, but because he keeps fleeing the forge. And if he keeps fleeing long enough, pain mutates into bitterness, which is why the next habit matters so much. Habit 8. Refuse resentment. Resentment is one of the most seductive forms of weakness because it feels morally justified. It lets you feel injured and superior at the same time. You were overlooked, betrayed, rejected, underestimated. Someone else was rewarded while you were still struggling. Someone wasted your time. Someone lied. Someone left. And part of you wants to keep holding the wound because it gives shape to your anger. But resentment is expensive. It binds your mind to what injured you. It turns memory into occupation. It keeps your identity chained to someone else's offense. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this truth. Other people do wrong out of ignorance, confusion, appetite, fear. That does not excuse harm, but it changes your relationship to it. You stop treating every injury like a sacred narrative that must be fed forever. Habit 8 is to drop the poison of mental revenge. Not because what happened was acceptable, because you refuse to become smaller in response to it. Modern culture often encourages people to build personalities around grievance. Entire identities now revolve around who failed them, who misunderstood them, who did not choose them, who got ahead unfairly. But silent power does not live there. The disciplined person grieves, learns, adjusts, and moves. He does not keep kneeling at the altar of his old wounds. This does not mean becoming naive. It means becoming free. And freedom becomes much easier when you stop trying to extract self-worth from external applause. That is the next habit. Habit 9. Keep your standards private but strict. There is a difference between wanting to be admired and wanting to be honorable. Most people mix them together. They want the image of discipline more than the burden of it. They want to be perceived as deep, serious, focused, principled. But private life tells the truth. What you do when no one is looking is the real architecture of your character. Habit 9 is the habit of living by standards that do not depend on witnesses. You clean up your conduct in private. You keep your word to yourself. You follow through on routines no one praises. You refuse habits that make you secretly despise your own weakness. You stop needing every effort to be visible. This is where self-respect is built. And I believe this strongly. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. It is the decision to stop negotiating with the part of yourself that always wants the easier path. That belief changes everything. Because once discipline stops feeling like self-attack and starts feeling like self-honor, Your entire relationship to effort shifts. You are no longer forcing yourself like a prisoner. You are conducting yourself like a man who understands his own worth. The weak version of discipline says, "I have to." The stronger version says, "This is who I am." And that naturally leads to the final habit, the one that gives urgency and perspective to all the others. Habit 10. Remember that your time is limited. Nothing makes triviality look smaller, faster than mortality. The Stoics practice this constantly, not to become gloomy, but to become clear. Death was not a morbid obsession for them, it was a lens that burned away nonsense. Marcus Aurelius asked himself, in effect, how many more times are you going to postpone what matters? Seneca argued that people guard their money more carefully than their time, even though time is the one thing they can never recover. Habit 10 is to remember, often and soberly, that you are not going to live forever. One day, the excuses end. One day, the delays stop. One day, the version of you that keeps saying later runs out of later. That thought is not meant to crush you, it is meant to straighten you. Suddenly, the need to impress weakens. The appetite for petty conflict weakens. The addiction to distraction weakens. You stop asking, "What do I feel like doing right now?" And you start asking, "What is worthy of the life I have left?" That is a different question, a more adult question, a more dangerous question, because it asks for action. And this is the turning point. Not when you understand these habits intellectually, not when you save the video, write down the quotes, or tell yourself, "This was powerful." The turning point is when you stop waiting to feel ready and start taking command of yourself in ordinary hours. Not in dramatic reinventions. In ordinary hours, when you wake up and do not reach for the phone, when you feel anger rise and refuse instant reaction, when you speak less, when you stop explaining, when you do the task anyway, when you protect your attention, when you endure discomfort without making a theater of it, when you release resentment, when you honor your standards in private, when you remember that time is leaving whether you are ready or not. That is how a person changes. Not through one giant moment, but through repeated acts of inner government. And what begins to happen is subtle, then undeniable. Your face changes. Your speech changes. Your pace changes. You stop radiating hurry. You stop radiating need. You stop radiating confusion. There is less noise around you because there is less noise within you. This is the identity shift most people are really starving for. Not just better habits. A better center. Because the man built by these habits is no longer ruled by impulse. He is no longer whiplashed by validation. He is no longer bargaining with distraction every hour. He is no longer addicted to being witnessed. He does not need to announce that he is changing. The evidence is in his conduct. He becomes harder to provoke, harder to tempt, harder to manipulate, harder to shake. Not because he is cold, because he is ordered. And there is something deeply masculine, in the best sense of the word, about that kind of steadiness. Not posturing, not aggression, not domination, just weight, integrity, composure. The ability to remain anchored when the atmosphere around you gets unstable. People trust that. They may not always understand it, but they feel it. They feel it when you do not chase every argument. They feel it when you do not overshare. They feel it when your routines are stronger than your moods. They feel it when your silence is not empty, but settled. They feel it when your presence says, without a word, that you have stopped abandoning yourself. And that may be the deepest point in all of this. Silent power is not about making other people feel small. It is about no longer being ruled by the smallness within yourself. the part that panics, the part that delays, the part that needs applause, the part that resents discipline, the part that keeps looking for escape instead of structure. You do not become powerful by hating that part, you become powerful by ceasing to obey it. That is what Stoicism offers at its best. Not aesthetics, not slogans, not a shelf of quotes. Practice. Practice when you wake up. Practice when you are insulted. Practice when you are tired. Practice when you are rejected. Practice when you are alone. Practice when comfort starts whispering. Practice when anger starts rising. Practice when no one is watching and the easier path is right there. Because that is where character is decided. Not in what you admire, in what you repeat. Number is less than. 2 is greater than number. So if this resonated, do not just agree with it. Choose one habit and begin today. Maybe it is habit 1, winning the first hour. Maybe it is habit 2, refusing immediate reaction. Maybe it is habit 5, doing hard things on schedule. Maybe it is habit 8, finally dropping resentment. Maybe it is habit 10, remembering that your time is not endless. Start there. Start cleanly. Start quietly. You do not need a dramatic reset. You need a standard. And then you need to live it long enough that it becomes visible in your face, your actions, and your silence. If this spoke to you, like the video, comment with the habit or line that hit hardest. And subscribe for grounded Stoic philosophy and self-mastery content. Because Stoicism is not something to admire from a distance. It is something to practice until your life begins to carry its shape. And when that happens, you will not need to tell people you have changed. They will feel it the moment you walk into the room. And more importantly, for the first time in a long time, you will feel it too.